Hello and welcome on Watches TV and welcome on Primetime Watchmaking in the news. And after a nice little summer break, well, here we are with a recap of what has been going on, mainly on the business side of things, as many brands have been holding on their new timepieces to be soon launched, and we will cover this obviously extensively. But I must say that there have been quite some changes when it comes to some key people transfers, coinciding with the fact that numbers are not so great for the Swiss watchmaking exports, a tendency already discussed on these channels since it already started last year, but now with the clearer acceleration of this trend. So how to interpret this and what are the consequences? Well, this is what we'll discuss today. But, and this is very important because I've seen quite a lot of posts on social media, blogs, etc. being really super alarming, as if we were reaching a doomsday type of period. But I think we can still stay positive without being naive. And yes, market conditions have evolved. So, well, let's start with this prime time. First things first, and here's the official update on last year's deal. Rolex has received the green light from the Swiss authorities to proceed with the acquisition of Bucherer, and the announcement of the purchase of one of the biggest watch and jewelry retailers in Europe and in the US was made a year ago. However, it was pending approval by Switzerland's and EU's antitrust authorities, and the permission was granted in July, and the deal was sealed with all the proceedings, which might top up 4.5 billion US dollars going to a new Bucherer foundation placed in Lucerne area. So now Rolex executives are taking over places at Bucherer. The Crown's president Nicolas Brunswick has become president of Bucherer, and Rolex CEO Jean-Frédéric Dufour is taking over the post of vice president at the retailer. Fun fact is that Bucherer has officially entered the realm of Rolex exactly 100 years it became an unofficial dealer of the Crown in Switzerland. Another significant deal, however, appears to be on hold. In the spring, the watch community was abuzz with rumors that the Sando Foundation was planning to sell the Parmigiani Fleury brand along with the Parmigiani Group and its various manufacturing entities. Though it was thought that Hermès would move ahead with this purchase, especially that they are already shareholder of Bucherer, the movement manufacturer which naturally provides Hermès watches with their calibers, but to other big names of the industry as well, such as Richard Mille and Audemars Piguet, just to name a few. Well, this deal is getting more complex as LVMH's acquisition appetite continues to grow, and with their almost unlimited means, well, it seems that some pretty tough negotiations are underway. And it got to a point where there are some rumors that some Geneva people don't want this industrial gem to fall under the roof of LVMH's empire. So for instance, one of the companies in the Parmigiani package is Atocalpa, a very important player when it comes to the production of regulating organs, including hairsprings. And though the Parmigiani Group is the majority shareholder of Atocalpa, you also have Patek Philippe and Chopard, and I doubt they would like to find themselves in a minority position facing the LVMH behemoth. Well, like I said, it definitely got a bit more complicated, and when asked directly about the decision to proceed with the sale, well, the Sando Foundation replied that there is no news to communicate at the moment. So things are still cooking, but it wouldn't be the first time that some kind of conglomerate could be put in place to acquire these production capacities by their main customers. So now let's talk market trends, and the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry released its report on the Swiss watch exports in January to June 2024, underlying a 3.3 drop compared to the same period in 2023. Okay, that doesn't sound like a big drop, but this number doesn't reflect that the decline in Q2 was stronger, and we'll see what Q3 will tell us. But first, let's have a look at some of the expanding markets. So for instance, Mexico shows a 20.5% increase, quite significant, and I don't really know how to explain this. But then we have India, which is coming into the spotlight, showing for the first mid part of the year a 15.5 increase in Swiss exports compared to last year. I mean, India is a strategic market for the Swiss watch industry, branded as like kind of the new El Dorado, and here's why. I mean, first and foremost, Switzerland has a long story with India. Its famous mountains are the scenery of Indian Bollywood film for many years, and coupled with other parameters, I mean, noticeable willpower increase, Swiss watch status, and craftsmanship symbols per excellence. And last but not least, as discussed in the March edition of Primetime, an economic argument, but one that will take a few years to properly demonstrate its effect, as import taxes will be gradually decreased thanks to a free trade agreement between India and Switzerland. So this agreement should enter in force in autumn 2025, and according to the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry, and this will have an impact on some brands that are already taking advantage of this, while others are waiting to see whether India will become a new land of plenty. And on the opposite position of the spectrum, while the watch market continues to experience a downward gravitational pull almost every month. However, this is neither unexpected nor the end of watchmaking as we know it. And in April, Jean-Frédéric Dufour, the Rolex CEO, he became the bearer of bad news, announcing the impending cooling of the market. And according to him, while the big companies will survive, but smaller, less established brands may face a sharp decline in their sales. So this is something we've been discussing for some time, and during the fat COVID years, people were buying watches to indulge themselves, and today they are more likely to invest in experiences rather than acquiring yet another luxury item. So after the significant price increases driven by this abnormal activity in the secondary market, in particular in 2021 and 22, well, we are now entering a phase where from the moment you buy your watch from a retailer, it is highly likely that it will lose some of its value simply by exiting the store. And for those who view watches as an investment, well, this can be hard to accept. But for many of us who are simply passionate about timepieces, well, this might be a great opportunity to acquire a new watch at a more reasonable price. In sheer numbers, Swiss watch export in the first 6 months of the year amounted to 12.9 billion Swiss francs, representing this 3.3% reduction compared to the first half of last year. In June alone, export dropped by 7.2% compared with June 2023, and steel watches accounted for over 80% of the decline as their value fell by 15.5%. Remember how in January, Watches of Switzerland's group's shares dropped by 30%, allegedly because Rolex decided to prioritize steel watches for their retailer. At the moment, this can be seen as a divestment of assets, considering that at Watches and Wonder, the Crown presented mostly timepieces made from precious metals, and exports of which remain stable amidst the overall decline, and that's according again to the Swiss Federation of the Watch Industry. In terms of volume, Swiss watch exports fell by over 800,000 units in 6 months, representing an almost 10% drop compared again to the first half of last year. And this is significant and has an impact on the entire supply chain, especially on those on some of the suppliers that were kind of asked to expand their production capabilities with the investments that came along. So this trend will likely continue as the Chinese market, one of the major consumers, whose exports dropped by 21.6% compared to last year, is showing reluctance to buy lower and mid-range price timepieces. In addition, let's not forget this year's government-supported campaign against the most prominent influencers and Beijing policy to reduce the wealth gap. At a brand group level, the Swatch Group was particularly affected by the difficulties on this Chinese market. But on the opposite side, the very top end of the market is less affected by these uncertainties. So to wrap up this topic, it is of course too early to draw any firm conclusions about this year's outcome for the Swiss watch industry. Firstly, because there are a lot of watch events and salons planned for the autumn, such as Geneva Watch Days, which will start in a few days, and we'll get back to this in a second. Nonetheless, it is clear that the overall numbers will be lower than in 2023, not a dramatic decline that triggers panic attacks, but rather another sign of a return to normality with fewer seasonal or impulsive buyers and more interesting models to come. So this period pushes every key players, brand suppliers, artisans to their core DNA and know-how, and this period will definitely restore a certain natural order here in our watchmaking world. So let's now briefly go to the Middle East, where Abu Dhabi decided to grow its image as a huge supporter of fine art and luxury. This August, the Emirate secured a minority stake in Sotheby's, significantly expanding its footprint in the luxury sector. According to the auction house, the investment amounts to almost $1 billion and is primarily sourced from ADQ, Abu Dhabi's third largest sovereign wealth fund. And French-Israeli billionaire Patrick Drahi, who acquired Sotheby's in 2019, also put an additional capital to the deal while remaining the majority shareholder. So the transaction is expected to be completed by the end of the year. So let's now talk watch fairs, and Watches and Wonders Geneva Foundation, which governs the namesake salon, welcomes several new members. Chanel, Hermès and LVMH joined the foundation board, founded in September 2022 on the initiative of Rolex, Richemont and Patek Philippe. And in addition, Jean-Frédéric Dufour, again, the CEO of Rolex, stepped down from being the board chairman and became the treasurer, while Cyril Vigneron, ex-president and CEO of Cartier, took over the wheel at the foundation. And for those who are planning their visit to Geneva, well, the next edition of Watches and Wonders will be held here in Geneva between the 1st and the 7th of April 2025, with even more brands participating and other brands getting closer to the main event, as we just heard that Time to Watches will occur in a facility just adjacent to the main exhibition hall. So this will for sure make our life a little bit easier. And still talking Watches and Wonder, well, there is the Shanghai edition, which is taking place between the 28th of August and the 1st of September, but only some of Richemont brands are participating. But closer to home and only a few days away, the 2024 edition of the Geneva Watch Days will take place in our beautiful scenery facing the Jet d'Eau in the late summer heat, and more brands are participating, 52 to be exact, versus 39 last year. So we will cover as much as possible this event, which will for the first time take place on 5 days, spanning from Thursday the 29th of August till Monday the 2nd of September, and demonstrating that such events want to connect as much as possible with end consumers over the weekend. And on our side, well, I will be joined by Elizabeth, whom you've already seen a couple of times on this channel, as well as Amandine, who recently joined our team. And this will enable us to bring you a true extensive coverage of all the main novelties presented there. And we already know that there will be plenty on top of being simply a cool event to attend. I mean, informal, easygoing, and a great get-together. And I'm not only talking about the parties, but also conferences, talks, and plenty of activities. So yes, the newscast team of Watches TV will be on a mission. And to close this segment, it is interesting to note that the Swatch Group, who generally remain quite discreet towards such events, is actively participating in this edition with Blancpain, Breguet, and Glashütte on the stage. Could this be the first sign of the Swatch Group joining in with the other brands for next year's edition of Watches and Wonder? Well, not sure about that, but would be nice. And following on these footsteps, and just for a hint of Dolce Vita, Milan Watch Week is launching its first edition from the 4th to the 6th of October. This event is meant to be a bridge between haute horlogerie and Italian culture. In haute horlogerie, well, this is not a guarded secret. The Italian watch market is a trendsetter, especially when it comes to vintage timepieces today. And when it comes to Dolce Vita, well, visiting Milan Watch Week is an open door to design, wine tailoring, and everything that puts Italy on the map. 20 brands will be participating, mainly independents, among them De Bethune, H. Moser, mb&f, Parmigiani, Romain Gauthier, and Singer Reimagined. And along the Swiss-Italian fervor, well, we might have expected Bulgari, but the brand doesn't take the independent box. Well, we will keep an eye on this first edition. Let's now very quickly come back on the Olympics. As probably some of you noticed, but I definitely saw more and more athletes wearing watches while performing their various exploits. And I'm not only talking about smartwatches, but actual mechanical pieces. I mean, obviously Omega, as one of the title sponsors of the event, was seen practically everywhere, naturally as the timing partner of the event, but also on the wrist of quite a few athletes, and the brand introduced 26 models in partnership with the International Olympic Committee. And regarding the athletes, well, we saw, for instance, Noah Lyles running with the Speedmaster Apollo 8 Dark Side of the Moon. Pole vaulter Armand Duplantis set the world record with the Seamaster Aquaterra 150 meter, the superlight version of the Aquaterra weighing only 55 grams. Léon Marchand, the French swimmer, with the Speedmaster Chronoscope. And the list goes on. Richard Mille with Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, the Jamaican runner, with the RM07-04 Quartz TPT, Miles Chamley-Watson, the fencer, with the RM6501 Yellow Quartz TPT, but let's not forget Youssef Tiket, the Turkish pistol shooter, setting the tone with his own flair attitude, white t-shirt, jeans, and a more affordable watch from the brand Nakar, which was born in 1929 in Switzerland and entered the Turkish market in 1942. But let's talk again about LVMH, as they were also seen everywhere and really leveraged their sponsorship across a few brands of their portfolio. Let's set the stage so you may imagine celebrating victories with a snifter of Hennessy, or perhaps a flute of Moët Chandon, the official champagne of the Olympics, and the glassware could have been made by LVMH owned Tiffany & Co. and Olympic torch, along with the Olympic medals created by Chaumet, and all this could travel in Louis Vuitton trunks and cases. So seeking for style inspiration while watching the opening ceremony, well, Berluti has some ideas for you, being in charge of the team front's outfits for the opening ceremony. So LVMH, La Samaritaine department store, Louis Vuitton's headquarters, and LVMH owned Cheval Blanc Hotel had all somehow been making appearances during the opening ceremony and throughout the Olympics. Well, the 2024 Paris Olympic deal, of which was worth 163 million for LVMH, is an investment in the short and mostly importantly long run, and this leads me to talk about the evolution of another big sports sponsorship. For the last 13 years, Rolex has been one of the title sponsors of Formula One, and let's say it was hard not to see them, as they did a fine job of securing maximum visibility. Well, it seems that this deal is now behind, and this spot will be taken by, you guessed it, LVMH, who will pay 3 times as much as the crown for this privileged position. And as with the Olympics, I am pretty sure they will again be able to leverage this sponsorship across multiple brands, with Tag Heuer being the logical brand to take over official timing. The deal is rumored to be worth $150 million per year and will hopefully heal LVMH's disappointment of losing the partnership Hublot used to enjoy with Ferrari, a spot taken by Richard Mille a few years back. And we know that there was some regrets by LVMH HQ to have missed out on one of the most prestigious partnerships in sports. So this is the perfect transition to now talk about some recent changes in the industry, and especially the many changes at the helm of brands and even groups. In recent months, significant leadership transition have taken places within LVMH and Richemont. The latter announced the appointment of Nicolas Bos as its new CEO. Bos, who has served as the CEO of Van Cleef & Arpels since 2013, will have to keep the entire group afloat amidst the ongoing slowdown in the luxury sales. Jérôme Lambert, the former CEO of Richemont, will continue within the group as Chief Operating Officer, reporting to Bos. Starting in September, Catherine Régnier, currently at the helm of Jaeger-LeCoultre, will succeed Nicolas Bos at Van Cleef & Arpels. The interim CEO for Jaeger-LeCoultre for the time being will be the brand's CFO, Philippe Hermann. And putting Nicolas Bos at the head of Richemont is, in my view, very good news for the luxury conglomerate. A man who knows products, and his track record at Van Cleef just speaks for itself. Mr. Vigneron, who we talked about regarding his new role within the Watches and Wonders Foundation, has stepped down from his position as big boss of Cartier and has been replaced by Louis Ferlat, who was previously overseeing Vacheron Constantin. No pun intended. And his passage at Vacheron can be easily judged as positive. So no formal news have been made regarding his replacement, but we have some good ideas of who could that be. Still in the reshuffle of key people, well, Roger Dubuis has a new CEO. The position had been left vacant for quite some time with an interim CEO. And the brand will now be headed by David Chaumet, who used to be at the helm of Baume & Mercier. And I guess his mission will be just as tough as the one he had with Baume. Okay, let's switch group and, well, let's go back to LVMH, which also shuffled its deck of CEOs. While last January I revealed the full chain of CEO transition, well, last changes have been announced this summer. The recently appointed CEO of Tag Heuer, Julien Tornard, has been transferred to Hublot, while his position at Tag Heuer will be taken over by Antoine Pain, the former head of the watches division of Bulgari, and Zenith will now be headed by Benoît Declercq, a transfer from Panerai and representing the only inter-group transfer of key players. Julien Tornard replaces Ricardo Guadalupe, who did a fine job keeping the brand at the level it is, but one has to acknowledge that things have slightly faded for Hublot in recent times. And this new mission for Mr. Tornard, well, it's quite a challenging one. How to revive the brand's mojo is for sure quite a task. But still talking again about LVMH, and when it comes to leveraging its portfolio, well, they just acquired L'Épée 1839, the famous clock manufacturer, which had released several partnerships between LVMH group companies. And I have in mind, for instance, Tiffany, which presented a carriage clock in the shape of the first Formula One racing car from the 50s, to mark the reopening of its historic boutique on the Fifth Avenue in New York in 2023. Louis Vuitton also called on the expertise of the craftsmen of L'Épée to create a hot air balloon, a symbol regularly used by the Maison. To set the full stage and beside their own model, L'Épée have made a few very famous collaborations, and some of the most popular ones being done with mb&f, for instance. So the question arises as to how its collaboration with long-standing customers will evolve. Well, in its press release, LVMH states that more than 80 designers, engineers, watchmakers, mechanics, and employees will continue to bring their skills, know-how, and motivation to all their current and future customers. Well, we will keep an eye on this, but we already know that a few of some exciting new time-telling objects from L'Épée will be revealed during the Geneva Watch Day. So yes, a lot of business news in this edition of Primetime, but don't worry, plenty of watches coming your way very shortly. So thanks a lot for watching, see you real soon, the very best, and obviously, Viva Watchmaking!